overwhelmed. My first one was morning power sessions, as we learned them, and as many a day as I could fit in. But so I'm starting with one to get back up. Two was prospecting as I gather contact information for Infusionsoft, which I spent 2 days on putting more information into that.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks. And then reading scroll one. I'm sorry, scroll two. I'm going back through the scrolls again. So I'm on two right now. So, and that has helped me. The other things branch off from there.
Right.
Get those things accomplished every day. That's especially number two with gathering contact data and prospecting. So I'm having to make a lot of phone calls to get updated phone numbers for people that are missing. So I'm having to chase them through and getting their data, and at the same time prospecting for the seminars that I did.
So what do you think was your biggest win since we last met?
My biggest win was the morning power sessions, because I would find every excuse in the world not to do them. When we were in class and speaking about that, I did it because, I had Paul looking over my shoulder.
Right.
And the big thing about working for yourself is you have nobody looking over your shoulder.
Right.
So I'm trying to work this back in to at least get my day started and my day planned, that type of stuff in the power session, and try to meditate in the power session, which is tough. So I'm trying to do that first before my brain gets full of noise.
So that's really interesting, Steve. So what are you using to assist you through the meditation process?
Well, I'm pretty good at meditating. I have all types of guided meditation on my phone, which I've used, but I have an anchor that I can use to trigger quiet, if it is quiet, and I don't have this list in front of me that's 10 items.
Yeah.
And I'm always having to carry something over.
Yeah. What's your anchor?
My anchor is this.
Okay. It's just a physical reminder to take you to a mental place.
Yeah, you get yourself in that state of mind and you anchor, and then you shake it off, and you do it again many, many, many times to where when you need it, it will put yourself back in the zone. That. I have several anchors for several different things.
There's like a ton of science behind how we remember things and how things are embedded into our memory. And a lot of it connects things as more memorable if we do a physical action with our body when we're having the experience. So like a physical action that we do intentionally, like what you just showed as your anchor. And I had one of those, I still do. And mine's a physical, I put my hand up and I say in my mind, unless I'm alone, I'll go, wait a minute. If I hear, and it's because I have like a lot of, lots of thoughts all the time, and they get in the way of me getting anything productive done. And a lot of times they're not helpful thoughts. So my anchor for that, once I realized that I could control that, was to just put my hand up and go, and I roll my eyes up in my head every time, like I can see the thoughts. Wait a minute. And so that's what I do. Chris, as you start practicing this, Chris is like really enjoying the observer's chair. That's a new place for Chris. Dad, the observer's chair is like that place where you step back and watch the waterfall come down instead of laying under it. And so there's lots of terms for that. Some people use that waterfall analogy. I didn't get the recording uploaded, but we were discussing the idea, Steve and I have discussed multiple times that being aware of what's happening in your mind, the thoughts that you're having, getting an awareness that you are not your thoughts really comes from being able to step away and make the thoughts separate from you. And we can do that with visualizations. And so one of those is the waterfall visualization, which is just that our thoughts are coming down like a waterfall, and we can lay under the burden of all that water crushing down on us. Or we can go, ooh, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to get out of the water and watch the flow and see what's going on. And the good news is we can decide how we feel about what is. We can decide what we think about what is. As we watch the waterfall of thoughts, we can say, is that true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? Is it kind?
Right.
Right? But another analogy for that, because some people don't resonate with the waterfall, when Steve and I, learned to call it the observer's chair, to be able to, Steve, why don't you share about your observer's chair?
Well, Chris, I actually have two chairs that match. They're high back chairs, and one is my observer's chair that is like me and with thoughts of I am, and I choose and I want and I get to, versus the other chair, which is my unhealthy habits of thinking that want to derail what I'm trying to do. And the object is to be able, like the book says, we want to stay in the observer's chair. And when we feel that negative or unhealthy thought coming through our brain, that we say, no, I'm not going over there. And I stay in my chair. So I have to have visual prompts. So that helps me out a lot.
That's awesome. And I also like the movie theater analogy, because our thoughts are like a movie, and we need to remember that we're watching the movie. We're not actors in the movie. We're not playing a role in it. And so when we start to feel this like overwhelm of emotion, like we're really mad about something or really frustrated, a lot of times that's because we now decided we're going to play a role in the movie, when what we really need to do in order to feel better is take a seat in the audience and watch the movie of the thoughts go. So that's a third analogy for just methods of being an observer of your thoughts instead of jumping in the swamp with them and suffering because of them, which is what we're going to talk a lot about today. So Chris, last week you talked about having some wins with food journaling. You were journaling, but you noticed, and you and I talked a little bit about this earlier, you noticed some other things starting to happen as a result of you just staying focused and mindful on what's going in your body. So what happened?
Well, I think every time I look at having a hunger or the need of the want to eat, I realize, what do I need to eat now? Do I have to put something in my body? Can I make a healthy choice with what I'm doing? And realizing that yes, we do need to eat, but where is that drive coming from? Is it the drive of the comfort that you feel from sometimes eating, or is it the need to eat? And I'm trying to separate myself from the want to eat to the need to eat, and just trying to realize that emotion. And then when I do realize I need to eat because I haven't eaten today or haven't had anything here, it's getting to be 11 o'clock and that's not healthy. You need to have something to start your day, making that healthy choice.
Right.
And limiting portions, being able to say it's okay to not finish it.
Right.
And it's as simple as tonight, making dinner and making that bowl of soup. How big a bowl do you want to take? Because there's X number of sizes of bowls, and you want to have a salad, and do you need to finish that salad? No, you don't have to. You can save some. There's always that
Right.
pleasure of going back and saying, I can go back and enjoy that a little bit more later, and I don't have to. I gotta say, stop halfway and say, is this a satisfying meal right now, that I've done what I needed to do for myself, but not yet taking me to a point where I have that, I've got to finish the portion that I've taken. Right.
Satisfied, but not stuffed.
Yeah. And so many times, I went out to lunch with a friend of mine here last week, and we discussed that. The two of us were classmates. I've known him for 40 years, and sitting down, and he has that same problem. He this is a different problem in the sense that he had to order the largest breakfast that was available, and he had to make sure that he finished it. Because he says, I eat this as if it's my last meal. But you have to realize you don't have to eat in large portions, eat in smaller portions, make healthy choices, and go from there. But you were talking about that waterfall, and taking yourself back from getting involved in the movie that's going on. And I like that correlation, taking that second seat, that observer seat, because you don't want to participate. The participation's the frustrating thing. Stepping back and saying, it's really a good opportunity for me to observe for a minute. Let's change my thought patterns, because I'm going in a negative way, and the negative way isn't a good feeling. And it takes you down mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I just don't. I'm refusing to let myself go there. When you have alone time, and I find myself, I'm swimming 4 or 5 times a week, and you're in that pool for a half hour. Boy, the crazy stuff that can go through your head, and because it's just you in the water, and you're breathing, and you're saying, you know what, just don't let yourself go there, because you don't feel good when you're there. So you have to realize it's okay to let that go and focus on something that's productive, meaningful, that's rewarding, and you can, when you get out, you feel good about it, versus saying, boy, that was a lousy experience, because I really want to focus on a positive experience and not a negative experience.
Right. So the truth of the matter is, things, happen, and we feel how we feel about them, and we have the thoughts we have about them. What we're going to do today is really kind of break this down into thought science. Steve, this is an actual lesson on what I verbally delivered to you once in the car outside the trampoline park. Steve and I have talked quite a bit, so I remember we had an intense conversation about it, but I was like, and I am in the car and I have to go. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen with you, because I've been working. Let me see how I can best do this. I've been just taking some notes. Now I'm sharing my desktop. You guys should be able to see a picture of a mountain.
Yes.
Okay, so now I've switched it. Can you see a Word document?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what we're going to start with. Please, to yourselves on paper, write down the answer to these questions. This is really one question. It's just phrased twice. And we're just going to do this one. I don't want you guys looking at that yet. Where is there a place of shame in your life? What is something you feel ashamed of? It does not have to be like a big horrible thing you did to somebody. It can be like, if you guys saw the post I made on the Self-Love by Conscious Choice page a while back, it was about this drawer in my house that is full of crap, and I call it the drawer of shame. So you don't have to get super serious, but you can if you want to. And, this is a safe place to do that. So where is there a place of shame in your life? What is something you feel ashamed of? Write it down on paper. There's some science to that. And
you keep changing the screen on me, and I'm trying to write the questions down.
because I keep wanting to be able to see you while I screen share.
Oh, okay.
And I can't for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I can make
see
this.
you.
Yeah, lucky you guys.
So where is?
Hey, is that better, guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
Now I can see you and the screen. Where is there a place of shame in your life? For me, there was the junk drawer, the drawer of shame, I called it. And my office was a big source of shame. So it does, yeah, so go ahead.
Where is?
Yeah.
And what is something you feel ashamed of?
So don't be literal. It's the same question, ask two different ways to see what resonates with you. So it doesn't need to be like, it's a drawer or it's the dirt under my bed. It could be a relationship that has gone sour and you were a contributor. Cool. Good? Okay. So we're going to call this your POS, your place of shame, but POS is funny, so let's do this. We're going to make jokes about POS for the rest of the meeting.
POS is point of sale, but that's okay.
It's also a piece of shit. Just saying. I know. Okay. So what are some thoughts you have about this place of shame that you have? What are some thoughts you have when you think about this place of shame, this POS? When I think about the drawer of shame, I usually have a slew of judgmental thoughts that come right behind it when I look in the drawer. So what are some of the thoughts you have when you think about this particular place of shame? Don't censor your response. Word vomit. Put down as much as you can. More is better. Okay. So the thoughts that we have about this place of shame that exists, we're going to call this our story. That's the story we tell about what's happened, or like the drawer or my office. The thoughts I have about it usually come out in a rant, an essay. We're going to call it a story. Okay. So this is your story about your POS. When you tell this story, I want you to go back and reread what you wrote, because it's the story you tell yourself about that place of shame all the time. When you tell this story, how does it make you feel? When you talk about or think about this place of shame, how do you feel?
kind of wrote that down in the first, in the POS.
Okay. Sometimes that happens because we're often not very good at separating our thoughts about something from our feelings about it. And we're learning about that today. So I'm going to ask a couple more questions about this, but when you tell this story, when you think about your POS, how do you physically feel in your body? Because I'm sure you said, I feel bad, or I feel discouraged, or I feel like a loser. Like, that was one of the things I've said to myself. But how do you physically feel in your body? When you reread that story, what's your body do in response? Steve, you're going through lots of paper.
Yep. I'm taking copious notes.
Okay.
Writing is cathartic.
Yeah, great. Okay. So, when you think about this place of shame, you have feelings about it, generally aren't good feelings, right? And then what happens? And you guys answer this on your piece of paper. You don't have to tell me just yet, because there's more to this exploration. But then what happens? When you talk about or think about your place of shame and you feel how you said you feel about it, then what happens? What do you do when you feel this way? What do you do in response to the feeling? It's okay if you do nothing. With my place of shame, the drawer in my office, I've done a lot of nothing. Until the last 2 days, I spent the last 24 hours kicking butt and taking names in my office. Literally just on my junk. It's completely decluttered and it looks amazing. I'll show you later. It's very exciting. Okay. So you guys answered, and then what happens? What do you do when you feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you do what you do, when you feel that way, then what happens? What outcome is the result of you doing what you do or don't do?
It wouldn't be a place of shame if it didn't go back to the beginning.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about reverse engineering next week, but for now, we're going to see how we get into that place of, God, how did I get here again? Right?
Right.
I hate that place. So this is where we start learning about that, okay? Let's deal with that POS once and for all.
That's a good goal, but yeah.
Go ahead. That's a good goal, but what?
There's got to be a drastic change.
Okay. Would before I go into this, I'm debating whether I go into this methodology or I hear a little bit about your personal experiences, you guys. Do you guys want to talk about what you wrote about?
Yeah, we're a closed group. There's only 3 of us.
Yeah. Well, it always needs to be consensual.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I have no problem talking about it. You know, of course, it's not easy to talk about, but it is a part of my life, you know?
Right. What I'll do is I'll break down this model right now as you talk.
CTAFR. That doesn't look like notes on a in music.
Okay, no, it's not. I'm going to tell you what this is. I took these little notes down here. I'll make this bigger for you guys. Make it bigger. Okay, now I need to move it up a little. Sorry. So CTFAR, circumstance, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. So the circumstance is your POS, your place of shame or your place of embarrassment, that area of your life that you're like, ugh, how did it get here? And why is it still like this? I don't like what's happening. So that's the circumstance. The circumstance usually can be described in one word. So if we go back up to the very beginning, I'm going to scroll up. And I said, where is there a place of shame in your life? Where is something you feel ashamed of? Chris, what did you put down?
Home/mail.
Okay, so that's awesome. That's a one-liner. So, okay, so for you, that's mail. So hold on to that. Steve, what was that for you?
Not taking care of and paying enough attention to my father-in-law when he was dying.
Tell me more about that before we do any breakdown of that thought.
Well, I lived 40 minutes north of him. I worked only 10 minutes from him, but working the 80 hours a week, I always found that I put myself first and said that I was too tired to go see him. Then he ends up passing away. So, and I didn't even get to talk to him before he died. So that's a major place of shame.
Okay, so the place of shame, if you could describe it in like 1 to 2 words, what would it be?
Selfishness.
Okay. Hold on to that. So we're going to go back to the model so I can show you how to break out this story into parts and have more control over the end result. So our circumstance, just so that I can make this bigger so that you can see it all. Oh, so smart. Okay, so C is for circumstance, which is the store. It's the POS, the pain in your butt, that thing. So it's usually 1 or 2 words, and here's what I want you to know about circumstances. They're always neutral. Circumstances are always neutral. What makes a circumstance not feel neutral when we think about it is just that, our thoughts about the circumstances. So in coaching circles, people who don't understand this like to challenge the coach or the teacher, because people will say things like, that's bullshit. When my grandma died, it was fucking sad. But here's the thing. What's sad about grandma dying isn't that her heart stopped beating. It's that, you know, if I think about my own grandma, it's that I didn't get to spend more time with her. I didn't get to know her better, whatever. And so the thoughts I have are about the circumstance. The circumstance is neutral, but my thoughts about it are what's actually sad. And while that might seem like I don't know if you guys are like me, but when I first heard this model, I was like hell-bent on finding an example that broke the model. I still haven't found one because I thought, no, there's totally things that are like sad things. But the reality is it's not the circumstance that's sad. It's how we are impacted by it. It's what we think and how we feel as a result that creates the sadness. It's not the event, it's our thoughts and feelings about it, which we're in control of. Yay. Okay, so the thought line here is that's the story we tell others and ourselves about the problem. So I'm going to make it really simple and cheesy. The drawer of shame in my house, it says my connection is unstable. The drawer of shame in my house, the thoughts that I used to have about it are like, how gross is my whole family that we have toothpaste smeared on the inside of this drawer? And like, what is wrong with my children? Can they not throw a goddamn Band-Aid wrapper away? And I would have like this and then I go on a rant all day about it. The problem, the place where we can stop and take action is recognizing that all thoughts are optional. And most of them are not necessarily things that could hold up in a court of law. I totally think I need to make an app called the Fact or Crap-O-Meter. And then it needs to have these questions. And if at any point you answer no, then you can tell that what you just thought was a bunch of crap. But you got to ask yourself more than one question to assess kind of whether or not the thoughts you're having are actually serving you. And feelings are the way that we know whether the thoughts that we're having are actually serving us. So it's really important to pay attention to how our physical body feels. And here's where we have a problem. You guys are both going to love this. Here's where we have a problem with food. For people who, myself included, have struggled with weight issues, until you recognize that your food choices, if you're overeating, I'm not just saying you, Chris, or you, Steve, but when people overeat, it is almost always because they're either intentionally or unintentionally trying to get rid of a negative feeling in their body, whether it's the physical sensation of hunger or the deep dark hole of depression or whatever it is. But what people who are overweight because they overeat. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of reasons people overeat. But big contributors are, probably the biggest, is our thoughts about the situation. Because when we think about being overweight, I'm guilty as anyone else of thinking things like, well, I've been this way for so long, maybe this is just the way I'm built. Maybe this is my destiny. Maybe I'm at my, maybe this is as good as she gets. Well, I know that I don't actually have those thoughts, but I have had really ridiculous thoughts around my health and my weight. And when I first started doing this kind of thought work, I wrote out my story. And my story was 2 paragraphs long of me ranting to my thought coach, Melanie, about the reasons that I was overweight. And it was all of a sudden after I wrote the story, I realized that is such a bullshit story. So there's something you can do. I don't think I have it handy, but you can actually take your story and you can write each literally you're transcribing. You take each sentence and you put it on its own line on a piece of paper or on an Excel. And each sentence is its own line. And then the column next to it is this true? Each of those statements that are in your story, we got to go back to and say, is this even true? So let's do that because this is going to help you guys determine first of all, by the time we're done figuring out what's true and what's not, you're going to feel better about whatever is your POS. So who wants to go first? Share the story. Who wants to share the story?
I'll share the story.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go through it on a line by line. Because
no, I want you to just read me the story, and it's probably going to sound mean and bitchy, and that's okay.
It's more about myself than it is about anything else in terms
Well,
of my story. You know, the place of shame, where is it? It's my home and the mail that I've collected. What is something you feel ashamed of? Same thing. You know, thoughts or feelings. It's the guilt. It's the ability, and then it's the ability to bury my thoughts when, you know, you think about it. I try to hide it from others. You know, I've got that stack in the corner that that I've attacked and brought that pile out. There's still a pile that's downstairs, and there's still a pile in the office, but I'm trying to work through those and trying to put them in boxes to either take to be shredded or, you know, but it's a process, but I still, you know, I've hid it. You know, it was stuffed in a box and piled aside, because when people would come over, I'd clear the table, clear the island in the kitchen, and you'd put it aside into the corner of the room where, you know, everybody knew it was there, but nobody said, well, you got this all over here. You know, you got this stuff for, look at the date on this stuff. It's that's 2016. You know, let's get into the real world. Nobody brings it up and says anything. But, you know, it's a part of just where it's been. You know, you've gone through it enough. Most of it just needs to be shredded. There's really nothing of any consequence, but, you know, it's there. You know, you try to shred it when you try to throw it out as it comes in the door, but shit comes in the door and you drop it on the counter and you work through it and you try to identify those pieces and then you go back and identify and try to throw some more out. But it's that stack of mail that has been sitting on the island for 30 days moves over and into a tray, and then that tray moves into the corner, and then that, you know, that all those trays can go downstairs, and, you know, it never really has gone through. Go to my office, the office room, and, you know, you find things that have been moved into the house 8 years ago, and there's still, you know, stuff there from damn near 8 years ago. You know,
right?
It's still there. It's not that it left. You know, the biggest thing I did was move 8 years ago plus, and you end up putting it on the tree lawn, you know. But
yeah,
it's one of those things that you know, that I've collected. And
I want to know why it's a place of shame for you.
Why is it a place of shame? Because I know people know it's there. You know, I've had relatives. I've had my cousin come over to the house on the way. She stopped from Denver, and I had that stuff in the corner. You know, and you know, you're sitting having dinner, and you might as well have had a seat at the table. You know, but it was back in the corner.
Yeah.
Nobody brings it up. You know, it's like that elephant in the room. It's like the drunk uncle. You know, that everybody knows every time you show up at the party. You know, you got the old drunk uncle, and everybody. It's the elephant in the room. You know?
Sorry.
It's just the years of Al-Anon, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So there's some shame around it because you have thoughts like, I should be handling this, and everybody sees it, and no one says anything to me, and there's probably people judging me, but not to my face. Like, no one's even confronting me and saying, hey, I love you, let's handle this, what's going on?
Well, there have been some people that have come over and said, but you know, you get the thoughts and feelings, you know, you get nauseated about it, you know, it turns your stomach and you say, how can I be so damn lazy? You know, why is it still here?
There's the thought I wanted to hear. How can I be so damn lazy? That's the thought I was trying to get out of you.
Right.
That's the one that causes the feelings.
Sure. And so you turn away and you hide your emotions and you say, you know what, rather than dealing with it, you hide from it, you turn away, you ignore it, you continue to procrastinate. And so what happens, the outcome, more of the above. If you can't do it the first time, let's try the second time. But, you get so good at, well, I shouldn't say accepting, but you get so good at just saying that it's okay.
Excusing.
I can write an excuse, yeah. And I can sign my own name to the bottom of it. I don't have to have my mom and dad do it, I'm a big enough boy. So it's that nausea that you ignore it, procrastinate, and I'm a great procrastinator. As I think we all are in life, because we have learned or haven't learned how to attack and finish what we sometimes want to start and want to finish, because we've made excuses all our lives to help keep that, to procrastinate,
Right.
So did I rant enough for you, Kimmy?
Yes, perfect. Well, and I took some notes. So here we are. So we're going to finish running this model for Chris, and then we'll do this for Steve. But, I can't spell. I wanted to share with you, funny that you brought up procrastination. It's also something I have struggled with in the past. And somebody told me today that the extreme polar opposite of procrastination is obsession. And I always like to think about things like this on a pendulum, and how like over here is obsession and over here is procrastination. And we do this. I've done this. I'm like super guilty of this in this particular realm, procrastination and obsession. Like with my job, I became obsessed. I was like ferocious and tenacious. And then, circumstance changed. So my thoughts changed. And then I kind of went the other direction. But what we know is that there's this place and the pendulum swings. But where happy happens is down here in the place of moderation.
Right.
So we're allowed to put things off if we're doing it mindfully and intentionally and on purpose, because it serves us, because it makes sense. Today I told my boss no, because she wanted to discuss something, and I said, I have this particular time blocked on my calendar, and I need to do this other thing. But tomorrow I have this time and this time both blocked for you, so let's discuss it then. So I wouldn't, I put off my boss because I had decided not to use her as a shiny distraction to keep me out of my office, which was a place of shame for me. The paper piles that my dad references, I don't know. I haven't been to his house in a while, but I think I had a dialed down version of it that I was barely keeping under wraps. Like I always felt like it was a tiny bit out of my control. All right. So going back to the piles of mail and the thoughts about it that cause this feeling of nausea. I want you guys to look at this section called feelings. This is my little definition. Feelings are just our body's response to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings is really another word for emotions. And when we're growing up, no one really teaches us how to identify those or talk about those or really what they are. So it's an abstract concept for most of our lives unless you engage in some kind of coaching. So emotions, that word comes from, it's sourced from Latin, a Latin root that means to move or to move out. And so what emotions really are is the body's physical response to stimulation in the brain, which happens because there was a circumstance and we had some thoughts about it. So when the thoughts showed up, our body had a physical response to it because energy is everything, Steve, right?
Right.
And the electrical conductivity that happens when we have thoughts creates the need to move energy. So not to get all hippie and foo-foo, but what's really happening from a scientific standpoint is when we're thinking, it causes a physiological response in our body, which was why when we think happy things, we feel physically good. And when we think crappy things, we feel crappy. So one of my least favorite things to hear other people do is say, I'm so tired. Because I think, no wonder. Stop saying that. Find a different thought to lock onto so that you can feel better. Because that's how direct the relationship is between what we think and how we feel. It's that direct. Most people are not aware of that. So, like what Steve talked about with the anchor and what I talked about with sticking your hand up and saying, wait a minute, if you have a hard time recognizing the difference between thoughts and feelings, which is how I started. I didn't know the difference. I didn't even know I had thoughts. My coach would be like, so what were you thinking about when you ate that brownie? And I'm like, I thought brownie, yummy, seafood, eat it. But what I was really thinking when I gave myself quiet and space and permission to hear those thoughts, I was thinking things like, well, I've always been this way. And I'm always going to be this way. So why bother changing? Because every time I start, I fail. Every time I start, I get distracted. I never finish anything. I grew up with this was a fixed thought for me for a really long time. I grew up with a mother who sucked at self-care. So I have no idea what it looks like to be a healthy, working mom who does a great job at self-care because I never saw that modeled. So when I realized that I had some control, that I could just decide what I want that to look like, and when I realized that feelings and thoughts work together, if I want to feel different, then I'm going to create different thoughts about it. So it's important because a couple of times, Chris, I've heard you say, so I'm just going to put that aside. And it's like you're putting the thought aside. Like, I'm not even going to look at you, thought.
Right, because you don't like you don't want to confront the feeling. Because confronting the feeling is the problem. It's not the thought, it's the feeling. So you ignore the feeling by procrastinating it, and it'll go away. 5 minutes, it'll go away.
This is what you just said.
Yeah.
That's a thought. If we were to run that through the fact or crapometer, it would not pass.
What's that?
Because the feeling isn't the problem. What's the problem?
Thought.
The problem's really the male.
Oh, sure it is.
The problem's the male. So confronting the feeling, this is where it gets tricky, you guys. We have to audit our thoughts. We have to be able to say, is this thought going to own me? Because confronting the feeling isn't the problem. It's a thought you're having about the problem. And the problem is that.
It goes back to the top.
Yeah. So this is a model. It's a practice. You're not supposed to know how to do it. So as you talk, I'm able to pull out sentences and show you, oh, that wasn't a fact. That was a thought. And as we practice this together, you guys are going to become amazing rock stars at self-coaching because you'll be able to manifest any feeling you want no matter what your circumstances after you practice doing this over time. So that's kind of where I've gotten to, is when the more consistently I practice using this model to manage my thoughts, I'm able to manifest however I want to feel whenever I want to. And that's a great place to live. It's a nice place to live. Come join me. So, okay, so if we're looking at, we've got a lot of thoughts here. And we don't want to feel nauseous.
No.
We already kind of talked about, if we feel nauseous, the action we do is avoid the task, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is always pretty easy. Avoid the task. And the result is still have a pile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the problem is actually that we have these thoughts that are stopping us from taking action. Damn, right?
Yes.
So the mail is a problem. It's really a perceived problem, because the problem, the mail didn't offend you. The mail didn't do anything to you. The mail is there. And the mail is a problem because we have these thoughts about it that are getting in the way of us handling it. So if we can break out and go, here's my place of shame. Let's do the work and find out what thoughts we're actually having that have allowed us to keep the piles. This is like a really tender topic for me, because I just did it like in the last 24 hours. And it's been something I've tried to do. I say tried. My husband, you should hear my husband, who doesn't really believe in coaching. You should have heard him today as I was cleaning the office. He goes, I'm so glad. I feel like you say that you're going to finally organize your office a lot, and then you don't. And I was like, I know. Thank you. Because the problem bothered me for that long. But the thoughts I was having, as I explored this for myself this week, because I noticed it right away the first time we had class, I made a joke about my place of shame. I made a joke about my office. That's not funny. That's my place of shame. So, point of story, we all do that because we want to beat everybody else to it. I'll make a joke about my place of shame so nobody else beats me to it and then adds to my sense of shame, right?
Yes.
So the problem, if it's the piles of mail, is the thoughts that we're having that are holding us back from making a different decision, which usually how we act in a situation is the direct result of how we feel. And this is why crimes of passion happen. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if I feel nauseated because I've had all these horrible thoughts about the pile of mail, of course I'm not going to go clean up the pile of mail. I'm going to have to face all those thoughts, and I'm going to have to do the work of sifting through them. But if you want to feel differently, whether or not you move the pile of mail, you can feel better. What's funny is as you coach yourself through the thoughts that help you feel better, the mail starts to move all by itself. Okay, so in this particular scenario, let's take, first of all, how can I be so damn lazy? That's a judgment. That's not a fact.
Right.
So we're going to delete it because it's not fact-based. It doesn't serve us. I'm a great procrastinator. That may be fact-based, but it does not serve you.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to delete it. Confronting the feelings is the problem. Not fact-based, and it doesn't serve you. So we're going to delete it. Okay? So now, if we don't want to feel nauseous when we think about the piles of mail, How do you want to feel when you look at the piles? Remember, I said the piles don't have to move or change, but how you feel can change.
Sure.
How do you want to feel about the piles?
Accomplishment. How do I want to feel?
Yeah.
I want to feel a sense of relief. I want to feel a sense of accomplishment.
That's good. Let me ask you a question. What are the kinds of thoughts a person who feels a sense of relief or accomplishment might be thinking when they look at the piles of mail? I'm going to say it again. What are the kinds of thoughts that a person who feels a sense of relief or accomplishment would feel when they're looking at those piles of mail?
They look at it as a task to tackle.
And are you capable of tackling it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that would be a fact. I am capable of tackling it. Now, I literally want you to say out loud, the piles of mail are a task to tackle, and I am capable of tackling it.
The piles of mail
are a task.
And it's a task that I'm able to tackle and accomplish.
Is that true?
Yes.
It's fact-based?
Yes.
Does it serve you?
Of course.
How does your body feel when you say, I'm capable of tackling that task?
It feels better. You get a sense of relief.
Sure. You're in charge here, okay, of how you feel. So
right.
The good news is, what happens when we go, man, I don't want to feel nauseous. I want to feel a sense of relief and accomplishment. So many people do this wrong. They go, so what I'm going to do is go work on the task. That's the wrong thing to do. People take massive action and go in the wrong direction with it if they don't stop and assess the thoughts that are causing them to take the wrong actions. So we decided, okay, I don't like feeling nauseous. How do I want to feel? I want to feel a sense of relief and accomplishment. What are the kinds of thoughts a person who feels a sense of accomplishment might say to themselves in the same situation? Well, it is a big task, let's be honest about it, but I'm capable of handling it. And if you're wondering if you're capable, I challenge you, and not in this case, but anytime you run a scenario through this model of thinking, if you're like, I don't know if I'm capable, scroll back in your mind and look for evidence, because it exists, but unless you look for it, you won't see it. So, anytime you need to do something difficult, you probably have crossover skills that prove that you have the capability, right? Mm-hmm. So just talk yourself through it. So when we were going, wow, I feel nauseous, what should I do? Was your first inclination to get your ass in there and like, that's it, I'm going to put out an hour a day to da-da-da-da-da?
No.
Good. For a lot of people, it is, though. For a lot of people, they think the solution to the problem that's bothering them is to just like furiously take massive action. But usually, what's the word? It's frenetic. That's the word, that frenetic activity, you know? And that's something I've been guilty of that I've noticed. So I like to bring that up to other people in case they're not aware of it. So the trick here is, okay, I want to actually get these piles taken care of. So we're going to put a new thought that serves us and is fact-based in the thought line of this model. And that thought creates this feeling. We know it does because we reverse engineered it. We
Right,
said, how do I
reversing
want to
it
feel
from the other way, yeah.
right? So when we feel a sense of relief and accomplishment, like you're going to feel, I'm going to take this away because you haven't accomplished really a ton except for mental health adjusting. Great. But if you want to feel a sense of relief, once you feel a sense of relief because it's not so overbearing, what do you feel more willing to do?
Devote some time per day to be able to make it happen. So if you know, it doesn't have to be like what was the word you used when you frantically attempt to
frantic, massive action.
Yeah, that doesn't, because that just leads to chaos.
Yeah.
You know, chaos in my, I don't need chaos in my life.
Right.
So you need to devote some time, and it doesn't have to be I gotta do it from 11 to 12 o'clock every day until it's accomplished.
No,
But you have
that would be horrible.
Yeah, you have to say, you know what, this is, I am trying to move towards my accomplishment, towards accomplishing a task to get the feeling of relief that the job is finally done. Because reverse engineering, when you come up from the bottom up, is really the way to look at it. Instead of trying to tackle it from the top down, you have to go from the bottom up.
So you have these piles of mail. The facts are, the facts that are thoughts are that it is a task. It's a big one, but you're totally capable. And just knowing you're capable brings a sense of relief. Feeling relieved, you now feel more willing. That's the word. What are we willing to do? You're willing now to devote some of your precious time to the project. Where before, it might have felt like a pissing waste of time to spend any time on that particular project called piles of mail because it felt so overbearing. So we're not, you know, at one point we thought that the way it made us feel was our problem. Remember? So, okay. So what's cool about this is if you devote some time, and maybe it's not every day. I'm going to, you know, we're going to come back to this, but let's say you devote some time per day. Is the pile going to be cleared up overnight?
No. But it will have, less and less, and it had less and less impact in my my negative thoughts.
Right.
You know, because if you can chip away at it, the negativity goes away.
As long as you're aware that the negativity is coming from your thoughts, so you have to actually hear those. So pay attention. A lot of our thoughts come in story form. That BS pain in the hiney lady that did the thing to me with the thing, you know, those kinds of like, pay attention, because when you hear the rampages of stories, you got to know it's about 80% BS. Okay. All right. So exciting. Let's go back to Steve. In your situation, you have, you used one word to describe your situation, and I forgot the word because it wasn't the word I thought you were going to say. You said selfishness.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that I was selfish is a thought.
Okay.
Okay, so the circumstance is
not taking care of a loved one.
okay. So the thought is you were selfish. What's the rest of that story? Tell us that story. What's the story?
Well, in my narcissistic days, I was it. So if it didn't serve me, it wasn't worth serving. So I was all tied up in my work like you were. It paid a lot of money, and I was worshiping money. So I tend to ignore. This happened after my wife passed away. So I tended to ignore everything outside of my focus, which was work.
Okay.
So this man was my best friend growing up as my father-in-law. He was the second father to me, and I just looked at him as a burden to take care of. So what did I do? I blanked it out of my mind, and I worked forward like I'm very good at doing.
Okay. The circumstance really is the death of your father-in-law. Your thoughts about it are all about the way you were showing up in the world at that time. How long ago did your father-in-law pass away?
About 2 years.
Okay. So that was not that long ago. So you're really still in recovery from your narcissism.
Yes.
And the thoughts you have around your father's death make you feel how?
Disgusting, or disgusted with myself.
And what do you do with that when you feel that way?
Pray.
Okay. What else do you do?
Try to take care of his son as best I can.
Okay, so I'm going to call that. Okay. And the result of that is it seems to be that you still feel disgusted with yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like your offenses as a narcissist are forgivable?
Yes, with time.
Who needs to forgive you?
Me.
Okay.
I think God has forgiven me. I haven't.
Yes. Yes. So, in the case of the death of your father-in-law, the thoughts you have are not even about your father-in-law, they're about how you were showing up. And you feel disgusted with yourself when you think about the way that you were showing up. But it's the thoughts that you have when you think about it. So you said, I was selfish. What are some of the other thoughts you had about that time in your life? And of course, you know, your father's death happened during that time.
I thought it was unforgivable.
You thought it was a burden?
Oh, yeah.
What else?
A distraction. Someone else's problem.
Okay. So here's where we're kind of stuck. And Steve, you are creating kind of a complicated case because
Of course.
Because you're knowledgeable, right? So what we have here now in the thought line is actually thoughts about yourself. So is this, the circumstance really isn't your father's death. The circumstance is, I mean, is it really your father's death, or is the circumstance really, I just feel like I'm having a hard time breaking this into pieces with you.
Well, Kim, this is real complicated. Then it weaves back into the way I feel about how I took care of my wife and her death 2 years prior to that.
Right. So we need to break this down super small. So let's make it small, because this is a big deal. So let's say you have thoughts about your father's death, like I was selfish. So this is true, or you believe it to be true. You may even be able to prove it in a court of law.
Yes, definitely. Easily.
But it doesn't serve you.
No.
So are you willing to stop telling yourself that thought?
Yes.
I was selfish. We're going to delete that thought. This is a fun game. We're just deleting thoughts. Okay. I thought caring for my father-in-law was a burden. Maybe that is a fact that at the time, that version of you thought that. But today, do you think it's true?
No. No, I should have looked at it differently. It should have been I get to take care of him. I want to. Instead I have to.
Is this a fact?
Yes.
No.
Is that thought?
Well, based on my values, it is.
Nope, it's a thought.
But it's
Your
a thought.
values?
It's a thought based on fact.
I should have looked at it differently. You can take that statement into a court of law, and you can actually have people give testimonies that will differ, because some people, the 3 years ago version of you,
Yeah.
thought something totally different than that. So if we would have asked Steve Seacard from 2012 about this, Steve wouldn't have said, I should have looked at it differently.
No.
He would have said, this is all about me. Bitches, get out of my way. So which one of those is true? Neither, because they're just thoughts.
Right.
They're thoughts that create feelings. So going back to, I should have looked at it differently. How does that feel in your body? Disgusted with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I should have looked at it differently. Shame on me. I should have known better. Let me place a ton of burdens upon myself and make all of these things my fault. Because maybe if I suffer enough, I'll be worthy of getting into heaven if I punish myself now for what I've done. These are all thoughts. Thoughts that are not fact-based. Thoughts that we can't take to a court of law and get testimony to prove that it's true.
Okay.
You're going to have to spend a ton of time on this on your own this week and really think through this. But I want you to get to this place. So if you don't want to feel disgusted with yourself for the way you showed up when your father was dying, what kinds of first of all, pretend it's me because you love me.
Okay.
And you've already forgiven me for anything I've ever done. So pretend it's me, and I treated my father-in-law like crap, and he died. And I'm saying, I should have looked at that different. I should have done it different. I could have spent more time with it. Why didn't I do this? What? I don't want to feel that way about the situation anymore. how I behaved is how I behaved, and I can't do anything about it. The past is in the past, and we can't undo it. And when we punish ourselves, we simply create more suffering. And the world doesn't need any more suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you want to feel about the way you were showing up during your father-in-law's death?
Redeemed. Forgiven.
Okay. All right, let's go back up to the thought line. If you want to feel redeemed and forgiven, if I want to feel redeemed and forgiven, let's talk about me. And there are lots of things I need to feel redeemed and forgiven for, okay? So if I want to feel redeemed and forgiven for any horrible thing I've done, and I've done lots, what kinds of thoughts could I have? What kinds of thoughts is a person having who has forgiven themselves?
Give myself permission to be forgiven. How would we say that? Yeah.
What else might a person be thinking if they want to feel forgiven and they want to feel redeemed?
God forgives me. Oh, yeah.
What else?
I know he would forgive me.
What else? We're not done.
Am I worthy?
Did you just say, am I worthy?
Yes.
That's a question. A person who wants to be forgiven says, I am worthy. Okay. So, first of all, Steve, I'm looking into the camera. Okay. You are worthy. You deserve to be forgiven by yourself. God's already forgiven you. So spiritual talk between friends, you got to forgive you, right? But back to the model, you're worthy, okay? The question, I am worthy, was a thought that you had, a thought that made you feel disgusted with yourself. Am I even worthy?
Right.
A replacement thought is, I am worthy. I am worthy even when I feel unworthy of forgiveness. I am worthy even when I feel unworthy of forgiveness. So now, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Hold on.
Come on.
Read that out loud.
The whole thing?
The part that I have highlighted in blue.
I give myself permission to be forgiven. God forgives me. I know he would forgive me. I am worthy even when I feel unworthy of forgiveness.
How does that feel?
Good.
Fractionally better?
Fractionally, but good.
The reason it only feels fractional is because not all of you believes what you just said.
Well, therein lies the work.
Therein lies the work. So the trick in between is there a thought somewhere in between that you can, we call it a bridging thought, that you can say that you really do feel, that you 100% adopt as a belief system. So I can tell there was a part of you that was like one toe in on this. I am worthy even when I feel unworthy of forgiveness. There's a part of you that was like, but really? The only reason it felt like that was because we have ingrained habits of thinking that want us to default to what we've always done because we're really comfortable doing what we've always done because that's the way the brain works.
Right.
So when you feel that resistance, recognize whenever we feel resistance to a thought that we would like to adopt, like I want to adopt the thought that I'm worthy even when I feel unworthy.
Right.
When we feel resistance to adopting a healthy thought, therein lies the work. Why am I resistant to that thought? Because first of all, I know it's true. We're getting into the spiritual zone, but we got a bunch of spiritualists here. So, I mean, we know it's true, right?
Yes.
Like the cognitive part of us knows that this is true. But why it doesn't feel true in our body is because we have other thoughts that contradict it that we haven't addressed.
Right. Okay. I understand.
So there's a bunch of other thoughts swirling, and you don't need to tell them to me, but do the work. And you know, we picked this particular thing, but I think that your years as a narcissist is the circumstance that most often prompts you to have thoughts that hold you back from accomplishing things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I totally love that you talk about it like it's alcoholism, like you give me hope for the corporate world because there are so many narcissists in the C-suites, and, you know, to know that someone can gain an awareness of that behavior and then actually intercede on themselves to make change, like, there's your evidence. I just kind of showed you some as I talked about it with you, that you are worthy. You changed your entire life. You changed the entire way that you show up. What else could you possibly do to deserve forgiveness?
I haven't figured it out yet, no.
Oh, because there isn't anything else to do because you're already forgiven. Okay, so keep working on it. But like I said, we've got a whole new line of thoughts here that Steve, I hope you wrote this down.
I did.
I hope you read it every day. Because if you read it every day, and preferably several times a day, you will create new ruts in the road of your brain that will help you to feel worthy. Because you already are, but you don't feel worthy because of all these other thoughts that you've had. As the thoughts pop up, drop them into the model. Ask yourself if they're true. Could they be proven in a court of law? If I held them up against Kim's fact or crapometer, would they fly?
Right.
And do they serve me? Because like I said, sometimes it's true, but it's not in service to you, so let it go. So then, imagine, this is the like holy crap of all of this, Steve. Imagine what you would do differently if you actually felt worthy and you actually felt redeemed and you actually felt forgiven. How differently would Steve Seacard be showing up in the world? Steve, you already show up like a boss. I can't imagine what you would be like if you were unburdened from the weight of feeling unforgiven.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Ton of work, you guys. Holy shit. Great job. Okay. So I will actually load this into the Facebook group so that you guys can grab it from there and print it off if you want to. Okay. Yeah. So I think that was, well, we got 5 minutes, so we're about out. But I think that that was a ton of fun, you guys. What do you think?
Yes, and Chris, I have had the same challenges as you. If I hadn't looked at something in 2 years, it's going to the shredder. I don't need to look at it again.
Oh yeah, it's just
I'll take some of the burden off.
yeah.
Because the way I clean up is I just take the top of my desk and throw it into a tub, which I never get to. So it's time to pitch, I pitch. But then the sad part is, in my family, we have a saying about any vertical surface in a C-card home is full of crap.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I can relate.
That's funny.
It just means it means you can put, if there's a clean space, it means you can put shit there.
I just put up another 2 foot by 8 foot table in my office.
Okay.
So I can get organized.
So, Steve, when you think about, we don't have time to go into it, obviously, but maybe you should call me because we should not tonight, but like tomorrow, let's visit because such impacting thoughts as the ones you've been having about your narcissistic days, I guarantee you are part of what's holding you back from other areas of organization, like what you were. But what's interesting is you're having some traction. And I think I hope it's just from having the mindfulness component and having people to be accountable to for it too. Okay, so Steve, I think that it makes the most sense for you to just really process the thoughts around the years that you behaved as a narcissist and really write that story. Write out that story. And if you want to process that with me privately, we can go through that story. Chris, what do you want to focus your energy on for the next 7 days until we meet again?
I think just driving towards releasing the negativity, looking for positives, relieving the burdens of stress that I accept but don't want to. So it's just striving for the right results. And the only way I can do those right results is by controlling my own actions and the looking for feelings of success versus the feelings of inadequacy and frustration and nausea. That when you look at certain tasks, the avoidance, look at it as an opportunity for wellness and good feelings.
Okay, so I think that you should keep journaling your food because that's what you joined the group for. And I know you were not at like 100% compliance on that.
No, I if I wasn't writing it down, I was trying to be conscious. Making conscious and trying to do the conscious, thoughtful looking at the emotions from where I was attacking my food.
So as you get into understanding the control we have over how we feel based on which thoughts we choose to buy into, of the ones that we have, 80% of which are usually BS, journal your food this week and just use this model to keep noticing your thoughts. I think we're going to have lots to talk about next week. You guys, it means the world to me that you came to class today. Thank God you guys came, or I would have been all by myself.
I'm glad everybody showed up.
Glad I came.
Likewise.
Okay, I will see you guys next week, but Steve, anytime you want to process some stuff, I miss talking to you. So
yeah, same here. Okay,
cool.
we'll do.
All right, thanks you guys for your time this evening. Have a great week.
Next week.
Bye.